The arrival. The sky over HFY 7 was a strange shade of green, streaked with thin, dark clouds that moved like smoke. The humans' landing ship descended slowly, its engines humming a steady, low note that seemed to echo across the barren landscape. Captain Mara Voss stared out of the cockpit window, her eyes scanning the horizon. The planet was silent. Too silent. There was no wind, no signs of life, and yet a strange feeling pressed against her chest, as if the land itself was watching them. "Status report," Mara said, her voice calm but firm. "Ship is stable." "All systems nominal," replied Lieutenant Kane, his fingers moving over the control panel. "No readings of intelligent life, nothing at all." Mara nodded, but she didn't relax. She had been on many missions, and this one felt different. Something about HFY 7 made her uneasy. The humans had come here for resources, sure, but instinct told her that this planet held secrets, dangerous secrets. Below, the landscape stretched in jagged ridges and sharp cliffs. The ground looked hard, dry, and cracked, yet faint traces of movement appeared in the distance. Small rocks shifted as if pushed by an unseen force. Mara's eyes narrowed. The planet wasn't empty. High above, hidden in the thin clouds, the Vorin watched. They were silent observers, creatures of immense intelligence, shaped like no life Mara had ever seen. Their eyes, glowing faintly blue, tracked every movement of the humans. To the Vorin, humans were primitive, slow, and predictable. They were sure the humans would fail. After all, history had shown that humans were fragile. Yet, the humans disembarked with careful steps. Mara led the team, her boots crunching against the red-tinted soil. She carried a scanner, moving it in slow sweeps. "Let's find what we came for," she said. Her team nodded, eyes alert. They were trained for anything, but nothing could fully prepare them for what was coming. Hours passed. The humans explored the terrain, finding strange crystals that pulsed faintly under the sunlight. Each pulse seemed almost like a heartbeat. Kane bent down, touching one. The crystal shivered and then glowed brighter, casting shadows that danced like living creatures. Mara gestured for him to step back. "Careful," she warned. Suddenly, the ground trembled. A loud crack echoed through the valley, and a human drone, sent to scout ahead, disappeared in a flash of dust. "Drone's gone," Kane shouted. Mara's heart raced. "Stay calm. Check sensors." "What did it detect?" "Nothing," Kane said, frowning. "It just vanished." The team exchanged nervous glances. They were trained to deal with harsh planets, storms, and wildlife, but not disappearing drones. Mara felt a cold spike of fear, but also excitement. Humanity had faced the unknown before and survived. This would be no different. Hours later, as dusk painted the sky in dark purple and green streaks, the humans set up camp. Mara sat by the small fire they had built, staring at the sky. That's when she saw it. A shadow moving just at the edge of the ridges. It was large, fast, and it didn't behave like any known animal. The team froze. "They're watching us," Kane whispered. Mara didn't reply. She already knew. Humans were hunters by nature. They sensed danger, and they knew how to react. The Vorin, observing from above, could not comprehend what they were seeing. These humans moved with awareness, with instinct, with unpredictability. The Vorin had studied countless species, yet here, they could not predict a single human action. Night fell. The sky became darker, the strange clouds moving like rivers of ink. The humans slept in shifts, always alert, always ready. And then, without warning, a low, resonating hum began under the ground. The campfire flickered as the sound grew louder. The humans grabbed their weapons. Mara's hands were steady. Her mind raced. Then, with a burst of speed too fast for the eye to follow, one of the Vorin scouts emerged. It was a towering creature, sleek and silver, with long limbs and a head shaped like a crescent. Its glowing eyes scanned the humans. For a moment, it froze, confused. Humanity's gaze met its own. And in that moment, the scout understood, It had underestimated them. The humans didn't panic. They moved in patterns the Vorin could not predict. Traps, quick movements, shadows, they fought with intelligence and instinct combined. The Vorin scout barely escaped with a scratch before disappearing into the darkness. Mara's eyes gleamed with determination. "They're not ready for us," she said. "And frankly, neither are we ready for them." But the Vorin were shaken. This species, fragile, simple, primitive to their eyes, was unpredictable, clever, and dangerous. And they had just realized something terrifying. Humans were hunters. Not just of animals or territory, but of survival, and soon, they would be hunting the hunters. The night stretched long and silent, broken only by the distant hum of unseen machines and the whisper of wind through jagged cliffs. Erythra, 7 had welcomed the humans, but it had also awakened something old, calculating, and dangerous. And the humans, they thrived in the unknown. The dawn over Erythra, 7 broke in shades of orange and green, painting the jagged cliffs in sharp contrast. The humans moved cautiously through the valleys, their footsteps muffled on the cracked red soil. Captain Mara Voss led them, eyes scanning every ridge, every shadow. They had survived the first encounter, but Mara knew the danger had only just begun. "They're learning," Mara said quietly. Her team knew who she meant, the Vorin. The aliens had retreated into the clouds and cliffs after the first clash, their calculations disrupted by human unpredictability. But they were watching. Always watching. Lieutenant Kane pointed to a ridge ahead. "Movement," he whispered. A group of faint, metallic shapes glimmered in the early light. The humans crouched behind rocks, hearts pounding, but their minds sharp. The shapes shifted, moving slowly, methodically. The Vorin were scanning, trying to understand human patterns. Mara noticed their formations, their symmetry, the precision in their steps. But she had something the Vorin could never fully predict: instinct. "Set the traps," Mara ordered. Simple nets, pitfalls, and loud decoys, they were not dangerous weapons by themselves, but the humans used them with timing and strategy. A sound, a shadow, a quick movement, the Vorin would stumble, miscalculate, and the humans would gain precious seconds. Hours passed. The humans moved through narrow canyons and open plains, their senses alive. Each step, each glance, each whisper of movement had purpose. And the Vorin followed, silent and invisible, unable to touch them. At one point, a Vorin scout approached from above, descending almost like a shadow of the cliffs. It paused midair, observing the humans. The humans froze but did not panic. Mara's team had studied alien physiology, predicting behaviors, and yet they relied on improvisation. One of the soldiers, Rena, set off a decoy, a small, glowing device that emitted pulses similar to the crystals they had found the day before. The Vorin scout's eyes flickered, distracted. Before it could adjust, the humans had already disappeared into a narrow canyon. The scout hissed, a sound that carried no meaning to human ears, but to the Vorin, it was frustration. These creatures, used to controlling environments and predicting prey, could not understand why humans vanished and reappeared without warning. Mara's mind was a whirlwind of calculations. They were humans, fragile yet clever, constantly adapting to situations. And they had to survive. The Vorin were relentless hunters. Every misstep could be fatal. Yet she saw opportunity in unpredictability. By nightfall, the humans had set up camp again, but this time it was different. They were not just defending, they were preparing. Mara had noticed patterns in the Vorin behavior. Certain movements repeated, certain reactions predictable. They would use this against them. Around the campfire, Kane studied data on a small holographic screen. "They approach differently now," he said. "They're cautious, slower, trying to predict our actions." Mara nodded. "Good. Let them try. Humans learn faster than they can calculate." The night grew quiet, almost eerily so. The stars above seemed sharper, brighter, as if the universe itself was watching. Then came the first sound, a soft scraping, metallic and deliberate. The humans were ready. They moved like shadows, blending with the rocks, hearts steady. Suddenly, from the cliffs, a small Voran unit emerged, gliding silently down the slope. It paused, scanning the humans. The humans did not attack immediately, they waited, baiting it into the trap. When it stepped onto a hidden pitfall, its long limbs twisted awkwardly, caught. The humans sprang into action, guiding it into a net trap. It was not lethal. The humans did not kill for sport. But the Voran was stunned, struggling, confused by the simplicity of the trap, and the intelligence of its targets. Mara stepped forward, holding a small device that emitted soft, rhythmic pulses. The Voran flinched, retreating instinctively. Mara smiled slightly. "Simple," she said. "Effective." The rest of the night passed in tense silence. Humans took turns keeping watch, eyes sharp for movement, ears tuned to even the smallest shift. Every crack of rock, every flicker of light, could mean the Voran were near. But the humans had learned the first lesson: the hunter could also be hunted. Above, hidden among the clouds and ridges, the Voran convened in silent communication. Their leader, a towering creature with silver limbs and glowing eyes, flicked its gaze down toward the humans. "They are different," it hissed. "Unpredictable. Clever. Dangerous. We cannot calculate their next move." For the first time, doubt entered their minds. They were used to studying, understanding, and overpowering species in mere hours. Humans had defied all calculations. Mara, unaware of the Voran's thoughts, prepared her team for dawn. They would continue their journey, moving deeper into the planet. But the humans were not just moving, they were learning, adapting, preparing for the next encounter. Every shadow, every whisper of sound, every shimmer of light was a lesson. And humanity was a fast learner. The dawn promised more challenges. But for the first time, the humans did not fear the hunters above. Instead, they felt anticipation. Survival was not just about strength, it was about wit, courage, and unpredictability. And the Voran, watching from the skies, were learning a lesson they had never learned before. Humans could not be understood. They were the hunters, yes, but they could also be the hunted. And that thought alone chilled the Voran more than any weapon ever could. The sun rose pale over Erythra, 7, casting jagged shadows across the rocky plains. Captain Mara Voss led her team through the twisting canyons, every step measured, every glance alert. The humans had survived the first encounters, and now they were no longer just reacting, they were hunting. The Voran, high above in the swirling green clouds, observed with growing unease. Their calculations had failed again and again. Every pattern they tried to predict had been broken. Every trap they designed to catch the humans had been outsmarted. To them, humans were chaotic, unpredictable, and frightening. Mara stopped at a narrow pass. She crouched behind a boulder, scanning ahead. A group of Voran drones glided over the cliffs, their long, silver limbs reflecting the sunlight. The humans had studied their movements carefully, noting the slight delay between the Voran scans and their reactions. "Time to turn the tables," Mara whispered. The humans moved silently, placing small explosive devices made from scavenged materials along the cliffs. They were not large weapons, but strategically placed, they would startle and disorient the Voran. Mara's eyes gleamed with determination. "They think they are the hunters. Let's show them who learns faster." Hours passed, and the sun climbed high. The Voran, confident in their superiority, descended toward the canyon. They expected to catch the humans in a corner, to overwhelm them with speed and technology. But as the first drone glided into the canyon, it triggered the devices. A series of sharp, concussive sounds echoed off the rocks. Dust and small debris flew in every direction. The Voran stumbled, their elegant movements disrupted by the chaos. Mara signaled her team. They moved in coordinated patterns, guiding the drones into natural traps within the canyon, narrow crevices, loose rocks, and sharp cliffs. The humans did not strike with lethal force. Their aim was survival and control, but the effect was clear: the Voran were disoriented. A scout tried to escape, leaping from one cliff to another, but Mara anticipated the path. "Kane now!" she shouted. Kane pressed a button on a small remote, releasing a tethered net that swung down and caught the Voron's limbs midair. The creature hissed, metallic limbs thrashing, as it struggled against the simple trap. The humans exhaled slowly, their hearts still racing. This was more than survival. It was dominance. The Voron had underestimated them, and now they were learning the hard way that humans were not predictable prey. Mara's eyes swept the canyon. Move forward. Watch every shadow. Anticipate their moves, but don't be reckless. As they advanced, the humans discovered traces of Voron technology hidden in the rocks. Small sensors, likely meant to track heat signatures and movement. Kane examined them carefully. They're monitoring us. But we can use this. Mara nodded. Leave them thinking they're in control. We'll guide them right where we want. That night, the humans camped at the edge of a cliff, overlooking a valley filled with strange, crystalline formations. The Voron drones hovered above, searching, scanning, trying to understand. But humans were already one step ahead. Small decoy lights flickered in the valley, creating false targets. When the Voron swooped down, expecting easy prey, they found themselves tangled in hidden nets and disoriented by sudden low-frequency pulses emitted from the crystals themselves. Rena, crouched behind a rock, laughed quietly. They don't know what's coming. Mara smiled faintly, watching the chaos unfold. No, they don't. High above, the Voron leader flicked a glance toward the human camp. The alien's glowing eyes narrowed. This species, fragile, slow, and seemingly simple, was now outmaneuvering them. Every tactic the Voron had relied on for centuries failed against humans. And the thought was terrifying. Hours later, one lone Voron scout approached the humans cautiously, its glowing eyes scanning for weaknesses. Mara stepped forward, alone, her hands empty. The scout froze, confused by the human's calm. Mara tilted her head slightly, studying the creature. You're learning, she said softly. The Voron flinched, its limbs twitching. It had calculated thousands of outcomes, and yet none matched this simple, bold human behavior. It hesitated, and in that hesitation, Mara and her team struck, not with weapons, but with coordinated movement and strategy that funneled the scout into a canyon trap. The alien struggled, then vanished into a crevice too narrow for its frame. Mara exhaled, feeling both fear and exhilaration. Humanity was small and fragile, yes, but clever, resourceful, and relentless. They were hunters, yes, but more than that, they were unpredictable. By dawn, the humans had mapped several Voron positions without being detected. Every encounter taught them something new. Every misstep the Voron made strengthened the humans' resolve. The canyon, once a place of danger, had become a proving ground, a reminder that survival depended not on brute strength, but on wit and adaptability. And the Voron, watching from the skies, realized a terrifying truth: humans were not prey to be hunted. They were predators in their own right, capable of turning every situation to their advantage. The rules the Voron had relied on for centuries no longer applied. Mara turned to her team, her voice steady, eyes sharp. We are no longer running. We are hunting. Remember that. Every shadow could be a threat, but also an opportunity. Stay sharp. Stay alive. The humans nodded, feeling the weight and the thrill of the hunt. Erythra, 7 was no longer just a strange planet, it was a battlefield, and the humans were no longer defenseless. They had learned the first, most important lesson: unpredictability was power, and survival was only the beginning. High above, the Voron hovered in silent communication, their glowing eyes reflecting fear and disbelief. For the first time, they did not just observe humanity, they feared it. And that fear would shape the battles to come. The hunt had begun. The sky over Erythra, 7 was darker now, heavy with swirling green clouds. The humans moved carefully through the rocky terrain, but there was a new energy in their steps. They were no longer simply reacting. They had learned, adapted, and now the balance was shifting. The hunters were about to become the hunted, or at least equal in the game. Captain Mara Voss paused at the edge of a deep canyon, her eyes sweeping the valley below. Faint glimmers indicated Voran patrols, their long silver limbs moving with the grace of predators. But something had changed. The humans had begun to understand the rhythm of the Voran, predicting their movements before the aliens even calculated them. "We can use the cliffs," Mara said. "Force them into narrow spaces. Make their numbers useless." Lieutenant Kane nodded, assembling the team. Rena and 2 others moved ahead to place traps, loose rocks, tethered nets, and devices that emitted bright pulses to confuse the Voran sensors. Every step was planned, but the humans remained unpredictable, changing tactics at the last second. The first Voran drone descended into the canyon. It moved cautiously, scanning the terrain, but the humans were ready. A controlled collapse of rocks forced it to leap back. A second drone approached, and pulses from hidden crystals disoriented it. Within moments, the 2 drones were tangled, struggling against the humans' simple but effective devices. Mara smiled. Humanity had learned to exploit weaknesses the Voran never imagined. The aliens had relied on speed, technology, and precise coordination, but they had underestimated human ingenuity and adaptability. "Remember," Mara whispered, "we don't need to destroy them. Just control them. Teach them a lesson they can't calculate." Hours passed, and the humans moved deeper into the canyon, setting small traps and watching for Voran responses. Every encounter strengthened their understanding of the enemy. The humans were becoming more than survivors. They were strategists, hunters who used simplicity and unpredictability as weapons. Above, the Voran leader watched, glowing eyes narrowing. Their calculations had failed again. The humans' movements were erratic, yet purposeful. Every tactic the Voran tried to predict failed. It was impossible. They could not anticipate the humans' next action. Desperation crept into the Voran ranks. They had underestimated this species, expecting compliance, predictability, and fear. Instead, they faced courage, adaptability, and cunning. And with every failed calculation, the humans' confidence grew. As night fell, Mara gathered her team in a hidden alcove. The cliffs around them glimmered faintly with alien crystals. "Tomorrow," she said, "we strike where they least expect. They think they control the hunt, but we've learned their patterns. It's time we take the advantage." The humans prepared simple weapons and devices, modifying rocks and crystals to amplify sound and light. Each device was small and weak alone, but together they could confuse and disorient Voran patrols. Mara's strategy relied on timing, coordination, and unpredictability, all qualities the Voran could not calculate. At dawn, the humans moved into position. The first Voran patrol entered the canyon. The humans triggered their traps in sequence. Rocks tumbled, crystals pulsed, and sudden flashes of light blinded sensors. The Voran drones stumbled, unsure which direction to go. A second wave of humans struck from the shadows, guiding the confused aliens into tight spaces where movement was limited. Mara watched with quiet satisfaction. "They are learning," she said. "But not fast enough." By midday, several Voran units were immobilized or retreating. The humans had turned the canyon into a maze of traps, pulses, and obstacles. Every step forced the aliens to reconsider their strategies. Every misstep cost them time and confidence. The tide had turned. High above, the Voran leader hissed in frustration. They had faced many species, but none like humans. None had adapted so quickly, none had predicted their moves so effectively. They were strong, intelligent, and unafraid. And most dangerous of all, the humans had learned the art of improvisation. Where the Voran relied on planning, humans relied on intuition and adaptability. They could strike, retreat, and strike again in ways the Voran could not comprehend. Mara surveyed the battlefield. Her team had not suffered a single casualty. Every move had been precise, every decision measured. The humans had survived, yes, but they had also dominated. The Voran were retreating, regrouping high above the cliffs. For the first time, they hesitated. Their calculations had failed. Their confidence shaken. Humanity had proven that survival was not just about technology or strength. It was about creativity, adaptability, and courage. Mara turned to her team, voice steady and commanding. We've survived the hunt. Now we've turned the tide. Remember this feeling. The enemy may return, but we are ready. We are strong. And we are unpredictable. Rena smiled, her eyes glinting in the pale light. They thought they were hunting us. Now they know differently. As the humans moved forward, the canyon behind them became a testament to their ingenuity. Simple traps, clever tactics, and unshakable courage had given them control. The tide had turned, and the hunters were no longer prey. They were equals, perhaps even masters of the hunt. Above, the Vorin observed silently. Their glowing eyes reflected fear, frustration, and the slow dawning of respect. Humans were not a species to underestimate. They could survive, adapt, and dominate. And that realization would haunt the Vorin in battles yet to come. The humans pressed onward, ready for whatever the alien predators might throw at them next. But Mara knew one thing clearly. Erythra, 7 had tested humanity, and humanity had won. The tide had turned, and the future of the hunt was now in human hands. The green-tinged sky of Erythra, 7 was quiet now, the stormy clouds parting to reveal stars shimmering faintly above. Captain Mara Voss and her team stood atop a ridge, looking over the valley they had transformed. The humans had survived, adapted, and conquered. The once dominant Vorin forces had retreated, leaving behind the remnants of their command outposts and shattered technology. Mara exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of what they had achieved. It's over for now, she said, her voice calm but firm. She turned to her team. Look at what we've done. Not with overwhelming strength, not with alien technology, but with brains, courage, and adaptability. That's humanity. Rena smiled, brushing dirt off her jacket. They'll remember this. The Vorin will never forget. And they would not. The Vorin had observed humanity for days, thinking themselves superior in every way. Calculating, precise, and lethal, they had assumed humans would fall easily. Yet, the humans had turned the hunters into the hunted. Each trap, each clever maneuver, each unpredictable tactic had taught the aliens a simple, terrifying lesson. Humans could not be understood. High above, the Vorin leader hovered, its silver limbs reflecting starlight. It had survived, but its confidence was shaken. Its scouts had failed, its drones had been outwitted, and its command center overrun. The leader flicked its gaze toward Mara's team and, for the first time, recognized the truth about humanity. Unpredictable, resourceful, and relentless, they were a force to be reckoned with. They are beyond calculation, the Vorin hissed, a note of awe and fear in its tone. We cannot predict them. They adapt faster than we can track. Mara's mind wandered briefly to the first day they had landed. The eerie silence, the strange crystals, the first encounter with the Vorin scouts. They had survived that day by instinct, by courage, and by ingenuity. Now, looking back, she realized how far they had come. Humanity had not only survived, they had grown stronger with each challenge, each encounter, each lesson learned. The humans gathered around a small fire, sharing quiet laughter and stories from the past days. Kane checked their supplies, while Rena recounted how one of the Vorin patrols had fallen for a simple rock trap. Mara watched, a soft smile on her lips. The team had bonded, united by danger, strategy, and the thrill of the hunt. But Mara's thoughts were already forward-looking. Erythra, 7 was only one battlefield. The universe was vast, full of unknown dangers, and other species who would underestimate humanity, just like the Vorin had. That unpredictability, that courage, that resourcefulness, it would be humanity's greatest weapon. From the cliffs above, the Vorin sent a message, not in words humans could understand, but in intention. It was a warning, we know now. Humanity is not prey. Humanity is danger. Mara received it as a vibration on her communicator, a code she barely understood but instinctively felt. She looked out over the valley and nodded. Let them remember, she said. Let them never forget the humans they underestimated. The team packed up and prepared to leave Erythra, 7. The humans had learned, survived, and thrived, But more importantly, they had proven something essential about their species. They were not just survivors. They were hunters, thinkers, warriors, and explorers. The universe was unpredictable, and so were they. As they boarded their ship, Mara glanced back at the valley one last time. Crystals glimmered faintly in the starlight, reminders of the strange, hostile world that had tested them. And as the engines hummed to life, carrying the humans into orbit, Mara knew this victory was more than tactical, it was symbolic. Humanity had faced a superior force, defied expectations, and emerged victorious. High above, the Vorin watched silently, their glowing eyes reflecting respect and caution. They had learned a lesson they would never forget: to underestimate humans was to invite disaster. And even in retreat, the Vorin knew this was only the beginning. Humanity's legacy was unpredictable, relentless, and unstoppable. Mara leaned back in her seat, watching the stars blur past. "The hunt isn't over," she whispered. "It's only just begun." And in that moment, humanity's place in the universe was clear. They were not to be controlled. They were not to be predicted. They were hunters in their own right, fearless, adaptive, and unstoppable. The Vorin had learned too late, and the humans would continue to thrive, explore, and conquer wherever their courage and ingenuity led them. The engines roared, and the stars stretched ahead like a river of light. Mara's team sat in silence, reflecting on what they had accomplished, knowing the universe had changed forever. Humanity had proven itself, and the legacy of the hunt would echo across the stars. The universe was vast, full of threats and wonders alike. But one thing was certain: humans would face it not with fear, but with determination, unpredictability, and the relentless spirit of the hunter. Erythra, 7 faded behind them, but its lessons would stay forever. Humanity had been tested, and humanity had won. The sky over Erythra, 7 burned orange and green as the humans prepared for their boldest move yet. Captain Mara Voss stood atop a rocky ridge, her team gathered behind her. 4 days, they had survived, adapted, and turned the tide against the Vorin. Now, it was time to strike, not just to survive but to take control of the battlefield. Mara's eyes scanned the alien outposts below. The Vorin were organized, powerful, and still deadly, but they were slower to react than the humans expected. Small victories had taught the humans their patterns. Every hesitation, every predictable reaction was now a weapon the humans could use. "We hit their command center," Mara said, pointing to a jagged plateau in the distance. "We go in smart, fast, and unexpected. No mistakes. We strike hard and disappear before they can regroup." Lieutenant Kane nodded, checking the improvised devices. "We've set the traps and distractions along their patrol paths. It should confuse them long enough for us to reach the center." Rena smiled, adjusting her harness. "They won't know what hit them." The humans descended into the valley, moving like shadows among the jagged rocks. Every step was measured, every breath controlled. The Vorin drones above scanned for movement, their glowing eyes cutting through the haze, but the humans had learned to blend, to move unpredictably, to use the terrain as their ally. Suddenly, a pulse of bright light erupted from one of the crystals Mara had discovered earlier. It flared across the valley, dazzling the Vorin sensors and sending a patrol scrambling. Mara's team used the confusion to move swiftly, bypassing heavily guarded areas and taking advantage of the chaos. The humans reached the base of the plateau. The command center of the Vorin loomed ahead, a sleek silver structure bristling with sensors and defensive devices. From previous encounters, the humans knew the layout, thanks to careful observation and intuition. They had studied every move, every pattern, and now it was time to exploit it fully. Mara led the charge. Rena and Kane activated the traps they had planted. Tethered nets swung into corridors, pulsing lights disoriented Vorin guards, and small rock slides blocked reinforcements. The humans moved fast and silently, their coordination precise yet unpredictable. Inside the command center, the Vorin leader sensed the breach. Its glowing eyes narrowed. "They have advanced too far," it hissed. "Adaptable, unpredictable, dangerous. We must contain them." But the humans were already inside. Using a combination of makeshift tools and alien technology, they disabled sensors, rerouted power, and created diversions. Every move was calculated for maximum confusion. The Vorin tried to respond, but they were slow, trapped in routines humans had long abandoned. Mara reached the central chamber, where the Vorin command device pulsed with energy. She studied it for a moment, then gave the order. Kane triggered a sequence that amplified the pulses from the nearby crystals, overloading the command device. Sparks flew, and the room shook violently. The Vorin guards froze, momentarily paralyzed by the unexpected attack. Now! Mara shouted. The humans moved with precision, disabling key systems and guiding the Vorin forces into traps and corridors where they could not regroup. Chaos erupted. The command center, a symbol of alien control, was now in human hands. Outside, the Vorin drones faltered. Their patrols broke apart, and the humans used this advantage to create safe paths through the valley. Every maneuver had been designed to exploit alien predictability, yet executed with human intuition and adaptability. Mara took a moment to breathe, observing the battlefield. The humans had achieved something extraordinary. They had turned the strongest, most calculating hunters on Erythra 7 into reactive prey. The tables had fully turned. Rena approached, grinning. They didn't see a thing coming. Mara nodded. And they won't. Not until it's too late. High above, the Vorin leader hissed again, frustration and disbelief mixing in its tone. This species, fragile and seemingly simple, had defied every expectation. They had survived, adapted, and now dominated. Their unpredictability, combined with courage and ingenuity, had turned the aliens' greatest weapon into a liability. The humans withdrew before a counterattack could fully form, moving quickly through paths they had prepared beforehand. Every movement reinforced the lesson. Humans were clever, adaptable, and relentless. They did not need superior technology to outthink the Vorin. They needed courage, coordination, and the willingness to use simplicity against complexity. By nightfall, the humans regrouped on a high ridge, watching as the Vorin retreated to the upper cliffs. The aliens had lost control of the battlefield. Their dominance was broken. Humanity's ingenuity, adaptability, and courage had proven far more powerful than the Vorin calculations. Mara looked at her team, pride and determination shining in her eyes. They underestimated us. That was their first mistake. And we've made them pay. Rena smiled, looking at the horizon. They'll think twice before hunting humans again. Mara nodded. Yes. But the hunt isn't over. They'll return, stronger, smarter. And we'll be ready. We've learned something important here. Survival isn't enough. To thrive, we must be unpredictable, bold, and fearless. We are hunters too. The humans watched the horizon, knowing they had not just survived, they had conquered. And the Vorin, the supposedly superior predators, had learned a lesson they would never forget. Humanity cannot be understood, predicted, or controlled. The hunt had fully shifted. The humans were unleashed. Months had passed since humanity's victory on Erythra 7. Captain Mara Voss and her team had returned to orbit, the strange green planet now a silent monument to their ingenuity and courage. Yet, even in the quiet of space, the memory of the hunt lingered. Mara floated in the observation deck, watching the stars drift past. The universe was vast, and humanity had only touched a small corner. The victory over the Vorin was celebrated, but it had also changed something fundamental. Humanity was no longer naive. They had learned that survival required more than strength, it required cunning, adaptability, and fearlessness. Captain, Lieutenant Kane said, joining her. He held a small holographic device displaying a faint signal detected near Erythra 7. Sensors picked up remnants of Vorin technology. Some signals are active, but they're different. Altered. Mara frowned. They're learning from us, then. Even in retreat, they adapt. Kane nodded. And they're not the only ones. The Vorin may have allies, other species observing the fight. They'll want to see if humans can be beaten. Mara's eyes hardened. Then we'll be ready. Humanity survived Erythra, 7, turned the tide, and proved they cannot be predicted. That lesson will echo. Below them, the humans in the fleet worked tirelessly. Scientists studied alien crystals, engineers repaired ships, and soldiers trained with renewed intensity. Every encounter had made them sharper, faster, and more united. Humanity had learned that intelligence, courage, and unpredictability could overcome superior technology, and they were determined to carry that lesson forward. In the distance, the faint remnants of Voran patrols glimmered among the clouds of Erythra, 7. They moved cautiously, scanning the terrain, analyzing the humans' tactics from afar. The aliens were silent, calculating, but now wary. One thing was clear: humans could no longer be treated as simple prey. They were a threat, a force the Voran would respect, perhaps even fear. Rena joined Mara and Kane, her expression thoughtful. "Do you think they'll come back?" she asked softly. Mara studied the stars, then nodded slowly. "They will. Others will. The universe doesn't stay quiet forever. But we're ready. And humanity will always be ready. We've learned to hunt, to survive, and to adapt. They may underestimate us. But never again." Suddenly, a distant pulse appeared on the sensors, faint but unmistakable. Kane's eyes widened. "Captain, it's not Voran. Something else, watching. Or approaching." Mara's lips curled into a small, determined smile. "Then it's time to see if they've learned the same lesson we have." She turned to her team. "Prepare the fleet. Humanity doesn't wait to be hunted. We choose the fight. And we win." In the silence of space, the stars stretched infinitely, but humanity was no longer fragile. They had survived, adapted, and thrived against a superior enemy. The Voran had been the first to truly underestimate them, but they would not be the last. Mara looked out at the distant signal again, a spark of anticipation in her eyes. "The hunt never ends," she whispered. "But neither does humanity." And as the fleet moved toward the unknown, ready for the next challenge, a single truth echoed across the universe. Humans could not be calculated, predicted, or controlled. They were hunters, explorers, and survivors, and wherever the stars led them, the legacy of the hunt would follow. Erythra, 7 faded into memory, but its lessons would ripple forever. Humanity had survived the impossible, and now, it was ready for the universe itself. The hunt continued, but this time, humanity would lead.